A true moment of history beckons for Berlin as Megan's Megacan goes live from Hotel Selina in Mitte, and also at least some people get to vote on the future of the city they live in. March 26th is Climate Referendum Day, and Megan and Konrad are joined by Sabine Zimmermann from Klimaneustart to explain why this might be the biggest vote in your life. Also, maybe you would like him when he's angry. Big green man Robert Habeck is absolutely raging as the FDP leak his heating bill. He needs a mega to calm down. Cheers, Bob.
Please join me by making noise and clapping throughout, but right now in particular, in welcoming Megan's Megacan.
Hello, everyone. Hi. This is a live episode of Megan's Megacan. We are here in Selina Hotel, as Dan said. We're very, very excited to be here. We have a lovely audience, which is making me both excited and slightly anxious, because I think I never really understand that anyone really listens to the podcast. So it's lovely that everyone is here. I'm, of course, here with Konrad Werner, my co-host and begleiter through the world of German politics. And we also have Sabine Zimmermann, who's here from Klimaneustart, who's going to talk a little bit about what's happening, because we have a very exciting referendum tomorrow in Berlin. Hello, Sabine. We're going to get to you in a second.
Hello, thanks for having me. Hello, everyone.
But first, as always, Megacans. Yay.
Yeah. So this is So we're gonna drink a little bit now.
We are going to drink a little bit because the news is very hard. What did you put in the little Nico bag?
I have got a Johnny Walker and Cola.
Oh, that's like a fancy one.
A Jack Daniels and Cola.
Right. So which one do you want?
The perennial.
I also have a JD
and
Coke for you if you want a colder one.
No,
I don't know if yours are cold.
I want that one actually.
Oh, you want the ginger? You always want the ginger one. Right, there you go.
Thank you.
I'm going to pretend, because the sun is shining now for the next 20 minutes before the next torrential rainstorm starts, that we're on holiday. I'm going to have a Captain Morgan's mojito.
Okay.
Not to be confused, and I say this every time because I think it's important, and I only get to sound knowledgeable during the Megacan section of the podcast. Don't have only the Captain Morgan mojitos are worth it.
Yeah.
There.
What's Sabine gonna have? Oh, she's got.
Sabine's gonna
I'm gonna have the G&T.
Okay, good.
Classic.
Yeah.
All right.
We're all on display here, like we're selling them. We're not selling them. That would be illegal.
That
we're not
sponsorship deal has still not come through, despite my best efforts.
Yeah. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Oh God. Cheers.
This is the bit I always edit out, which is us drinking.
Do you?
Yeah.
I just thought I was a very delicate drinker.
No, there's always like a gap in the recording where we're just like going, ooh, yeah. And then I always edit it out, and now it's like live in front of people. It's really embarrassing. This is like, ooh, drinking.
It's absolutely delicious, this, guys. You'll never have to make a mojito again. And it does actually taste a little bit like it is fresh. How is your gin and tonic, Sabine?
It's excellent. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So we're in a kind of gift shop of a hotel. Did you notice? I mean, we're sitting in between like a fridge full of salad. And
condoms, which I think is responsible. That's responsible hotel ownership.
And sort of some pajamas here you could buy. And hats and sunglasses.
Trendy kind of vintage clothing.
And very expensive word games. I guess if you get bored.
If the condoms are not, after all that fun.
It's a very odd situation.
We don't come to Mitte much. We're very excited.
No.
We usually record in Konrad's flat in Kreuzberg.
Yeah.
Which is very nice in a different way.
Yeah.
We're stalling, of course, because we don't want to talk about the news. What have you got for us?
So you might have heard Robert Habeck.
Prepare yourselves, everybody. It's not
Robert
really a good
Habeck,
one.
our Vice Chancellor and Economy Minister.
I'd forgotten he was Vice Chancellor.
Yeah, well, yeah.
and Economy Minister, and he's in the Greens.
Yeah, and he was on TV earlier this week, and he was seething.
Seething? Like my level of seething?
Almost as angry as you. I mean, if someone had given him a Megacan, then it would have been turned ugly.
This is why they don't give
TV.
people Megacans on normal politics shows.
So he was very angry because he felt like that his draft law for phasing out gas heating systems had been leaked to the Bild-Zeitung by someone from the FDP.
God, this is all our big hitters of people that I hate. The FDP, the Bild.
Yeah.
Robert Habeck, my jury is out on, but at least he's like moderately attractive. So.
And he said, amongst other things, I've got some quotes here from Robert Habeck this week. Because we had a show recently. I just wanted to started with Robert Habeck specifically because we had a show recently where we kind of criticised him quite a lot over the. Do you remember about the Lutzerath
but before
thing?
that, we also had one where like Izzy, friend of the podcast, and I went on and on about how much we kind of fancy him. So this is what, like, BBC, take note. This is what balanced journalism looks like. So do we fancy Robert? Do we hate him? Who can tell?
It's safe to say that Megan's Megacan has a love-hate relationship with Robert Habeck. And so he said, amongst other things this week, you can't have a coalition of progress where only one party is in charge of progress and the others try to stop the progress.
Wow.
This is the coalition of the German government, SPD, FDP, and so he's like, no one's trying except me here. And he also said the draft law, his gas heating draft law, was leaked deliberately to endanger the trust in the government. The discussions with the coalition partners was deliberately destroyed for the sake of a cheap strategic advantage. That's why I'm a little alarmed whether there is in fact a will to agree.
That's like bold stuff.
So
for German
politician, and he was basically saying that the FDP deliberately leaked this law because they were trying to scupper it. They wanted to stop the law altogether, and and then Wolfgang Kubicki, have you heard of him?
Nope, of course not.
He's of the FDP. He's like kind of like a bit of a rogue figure in the FDP. He's a bit like the Sarah Wagenknecht of the FDP. He's always saying unpleasant things. Yeah, he's always kind of trying to be controversial. And he came on telly on this some weird internet TV show he was on. Not that there's anything wrong with.
Thank you for doing this, so I don't have to. I'm doing the Lord's work, Konrad. My God, I don't want to watch any of this ever.
And he went on telly and he said. He compared Robert Habeck to Vladimir Putin.
Oh, fuck me.
And said, because he said, like, they both are convinced that the state and the leader know better what is good for the people than the people do. He did apologize for that, Kubicki. He did say, like, he's not like Putin, really. I was just joking. But he still said it. Because that's...
and he can't text you the next day when the Megacan's worn off and go, can you edit that out? Because I didn't really mean it.
So
it's already gone out, Wolfgang.
Yeah, it's already gone out on the telly, I'm afraid.
Okay, so there's FDP and they're pissed off with... No, Robert Habeck is pissed off with them because they keep leaking stuff.
Yeah. And then also the other thing is that like Habeck was, he pointed out in this TV show, he said like, we have this official climate target, which is obviously of 2045 for the whole of Germany to become climate neutral. And he pointed out that the last government, Merkel's CDU government, was in charge of that. They made that target.
Yeah.
And he said, well, look, if we install a gas heating system, they last for 30 or 40 years. So obviously, at some point, we're going to need a law, because now 2045 is only 22 years away. So obviously, at some point, we're going to need a law.
He's being a reasonable person, looking at things, going, if we want to be there, we have to do this now. And they're going, you're being unreasonable, Robert.
Yeah, and so he said, and now the FDP, who are not even the CDU, they are scuppering this law. So then we also had the other thing about the combustion engines. Do you want to know about that?
Well,
What do you know about the combustion engine issue?
I know that I've been reading headlines and going, nope, not today, because I'm
Okay.
going to wait until I have a drink in my hand and Konrad in his soothing voice can explain it to me.
Yeah. Well, I'll try and.
But this
be
is like where
soothing.
this silly little conflict goes kind of EU-wide.
Yeah. So. So the
Listen up,
EU
everyone.
came up with this law of they're going to phase out combustion engines. Oh yeah, Sabine, do feel free to chip in and correct anything that I say that might be wrong, because
Yeah.
you obviously know actually more about this than me. But I have to do this anyway. I have to explain it because
That's why we're-
it's our podcast.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
if I say anything wrong, do go. No, we're talking shite. Yeah. So the FDP insists that even after 2035, so the EU wanted to bring in a law to, they'd agreed it 6 months ago, everyone agreed it, all the countries agreed it, by 2035, no more new combustion engine cars would be sold. And they said everyone was agreed with this, including the FDP, including the Liberal parties in the Parliament. And then this week, the FDP were like, actually, no, we don't want to do that after all. And that angered not only the other parties in the German government, especially the Greens, obviously, it also angered all the other parties in the European Parliament, including the Liberal parties in the European Parliament, so the ones that are allied with the FDP. They were said because it kind of makes the whole of the EU unstable if one government can suddenly come along and say, you can't, we're going to go back on this whole deal. And why is the FDP doing this, you might ask?
Well, I sort of read half an article on this, or like half somebody else's summary of it.
Okay.
And they were kind of like, well, we make like really good combustion engines and ours are the best and we don't see why we should give that up.
Yeah, basically, yeah, sort of that and also because Germany has a lot of companies that make little parts that you can put in cars, like exhaust pipes. They, like the big car companies are already switching to electric anyway. But all the other little companies that make parts for combustion engines are saying, "Oh, well, what about our exhaust pipes?" And so they have been going on, and now the FDP is making a big deal of it. And it's very tedious. But Transport Minister Volker
It
Wissing,
is very, very tedious, but also the planet is literally
yeah,
on fire.
yeah.
Oh God, I hate
So
this. So
the compromise is they want to have a clause in the EU law which says that the e-fuel combustion engines will be still allowed. And what
but
is an
can you
e-fuel?
do e-fuel in a combustion engine?
Yeah, potentially, maybe. We
don't know.
We don't quite know because we don't really know how commercially viable e-fuels are. E-fuels are they're fuels that have been made out of recycled carbon dioxide. That's right.
I believe so. And I
Yes,
think
good.
didn't they pass it today or yesterday, or
Yeah.
it finally came through with
Yeah.
that beautiful distraction tactic to distract from the real issues at hand?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
this all sounds great and a wonderful use of our time.
so they want to do that. So the e-fuels are going to be in. So they're going to have this little extra thing that's going to make it
To
okay.
placate the FDP.
Just to placate the FDP.
How incredibly...
Because no one wants to vote for them anymore. That's
No,
why
because they're dicks. But instead of being like, oh, well, maybe we should work on, like, do our policies actually make sense? Are we required? They'd rather just, like, throw their toys out of the pram in front of the whole EU, embarrass us all.
I mean, it's all because no one wants to vote for them anymore. It's because they're on like 5% and they keep losing the regional elections and they got thrown out of the Berlin parliament. And so now they have to feel like they're, as the Germans say, they're making elbows. What did the Germans say? they
I don't know.
getting elbowy. They're trying to make a...
They're getting bullshit. But I don't think that's going to work either. But they're just
they want
like...
people to notice them.
Well, of course they do, because they're stupid boys with big cars who studied business at school and, like, somehow, because they had the fortitude to be born kind of, I don't know, with a certain amount of privilege, they've made it into parliament, which they never, or into government,
Yeah.
which is terrifying.
Yeah, so, and it's a bit of a problem because they're supposed to be a party of progress. And you remember when they did the coalition contract and they did that selfie together? And this was like they were the new
God, yes,
party
I do.
with,
Yeah.
What's his face? Christian Lindner and
that lad.
Baerbock and
My pal,
Habeck, and
yeah.
they did a big selfie.
A really awkward selfie, yes, I remember it.
And they all look really happy, and they all look like, yeah, we're going to like totally invest loads of money in renewable energies and modern technology. And now it's become a culture war where people like Wolfgang Kubicki feel like they can compare Habeck to Vladimir Putin. And it's just and that's why Habeck is seething on TV.
I don't blame him. I'm with this is we're going to swing the other pendulum on Habeck now, and I'm going to say I am seething alongside with him. I don't think this is reasonable, and I do feel it's like the FDP. Like what they stand for is not actually progress, because we have kind of more or less individual liberty here. And now all they're left with is like a resistance to any kind of like government intervention, which is going to be for the collective good.
Yeah.
So they're fucked. So like no one, why would you vote for them? Because you'd rather just vote for the AfD, who have, and then you don't have to hide your other tendencies. There's no point in the FDP. We're done. So they should sit down.
I mean, there was a point for them, like I think in the 19th century.
Yeah, class. Good work. Sit down, shut up, stop embarrassing us in front of the EU.
I think that that was a big thing. Then they were a big revolutionary party in the 19th century when people couldn't vote and everything, and they were all about freedom. And,
yeah.
I mean, this is the anniversary year of 1848.
They could get into historical reenactments of that.
Yeah. Well, that's what they're doing, aren't they? Down.
Just not
down Friedrichstrasse, aren't they doing like barricades and stuff?
What?
Not the FDP, but generally.
Yeah, well, that's what the FDP should be doing. Like, down there with your weird liberalism. Leave the rest of us to stop the planet from burning up.
I mean, it was an exciting time, 1848. That was a good time.
I'm not arguing with this. Great work, everybody. But times have changed. We've got podcasts in hotels now.
But
it's fine.
Yeah.
We can do literally whatever we want.
Yeah. Like the freedom to vote is not the same as the freedom to drive really fast down the autobahn. I mean, it's just not the same, is it?
To be fair, they could get really behind the freedom to vote for everybody thing.
Oh, yeah.
But they don't, because they make weird speeches about that in the Bundestag when that comes out, so...
Well, that was a nice segue, isn't it, that you mentioned that?
We never plan these. It's beautifully, fortuitous when they do happen, but yes.
Who is allowed to vote in Germany? And who is allowed to vote in tomorrow's referendum?
Okay. Who is allowed to vote in Germany? If you are over 18... And I'm just talking in the major elections. So that is for your state parliament and the Bundestag. That is German citizens over the age of 18.
Yeah.
It's not easy to come across these German Pässe either.
Yeah.
Sabine?
Yes, that's correct.
Let's just remind everybody that you hear from Klimaneustart, who are the organization, the kind of initiative responsible for bringing the referendum that's going to be happening tomorrow to Berlin. And it's a referendum. Do the same rules apply? Can only German citizens vote?
Yes, pretty much, except this time because it's a Berlin referendum. So at state level, we have the additional restriction that everyone needs to be a registered citizen in Berlin. Everyone that lives here knows the Meldegesetz. And you have to be registered at an address for 3 months already, so it doesn't even help if you registered yesterday, in addition to, as you mentioned, being 18 years old and being a German citizen.
Okay. Just out of interest, who can vote tomorrow? Not bad. So that's less than half, though. But then
four out of our...
Maybe we should do another survey of who's heard of the climate referendum, Berlin 2030, climate neutral. Almost everyone. That's good.
That's good.
Okay.
That's good. So, what are people voting on? Tomorrow. What would a yes mean?
A yes means what we're voting on is make an existing law. So it's nothing new we're trying to invent. The climate neutrality and protection. I forget the Energiegesetz. We're trying to move it from the current goal, that's 2045, to 2013. Which puts it in line with the climate goals from Paris, the 1.5 degree goals that the German government did commit to. So really we're just putting them in line with their commitments. We're just moving the deadline up to make it a bit more urgent because
why would you want to do that?
I don't know, when your house is on fire, you're like, that looks good, we're going to sit here and wait and watch it burn for a bit because our deadline is a long way out. No,
we said 45, we're going to stick to that deadline, apart from when we need to do anything that might be preparing us for 45. Anyway.
Yeah, so really it's just putting the Berlin government in line with what the German government agreed to, which is 1.5 degrees in Paris, which 2045 would be too late to achieve that goal.
Okay. And what are the numbers? How many yes votes do you need to win tomorrow?
We need 25% of the people that are allowed to vote in Berlin,
How many
which
people?
at the moment are just under 608,000.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll hear differing numbers around the city. I think originally we said 607,000, just a rounding error. It's just under 608,000. Hopefully we won't be coming down to a couple of thousand. The Senate communicates 613,000 because they don't want to adjust with every referendum. But it needs to be 25% of the population participating, and of those we need more yes than no votes in order for the deadline to move to 2030, not 2045.
Okay. And what commitments would the government have to make? So if, say, the yes votes wins tomorrow, what does the government actually, does that mean they have to do it? Because we've had referendums before and then
fuck all happens.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. In Berlin we have an interesting history with referendums. The difference now is that this one is a Gesetz referendum, a referendum that's changing an existing law. So unlike Deutsche Wohnen enteignen, which I assume you're referring to, that got passed with a large majority and not much has happened since then, because we're changing an existing law, the result is legally binding and has to be implemented starting immediately.
Wow. So on the website, there is a big plan about how this is going to be achieved. But a lot of politicians have been saying in Berlin, this is not realistic. Like 7 years is not enough time to reduce emissions by that much because A, it's too expensive and we don't have enough people to even implement all the things. So how do voters know that it will even be possible?
Well, what on the website you're probably referring to is the ideas we're trying to communicate what it could mean to be climate neutral by 2030, that it would actually be healthier, greener, more livable, more future-oriented, a nicer city, just a nicer environment to live in. We've purposely not set any direct goals because that's not our role. These are really complex matters with a lot of different policy sectors that have to cooperate and work with each other. So we purposely didn't create any specific guidelines because we want the government to have some flexibility to create the right policy mix to make things happen. But we're making it a binding target, 2030. It's not just, right now there's a goal, that's also one of the differences. 2045 is the goal. We've seen in the past with governments how great at a federal level and at a state level we've been working towards a goal. Now we're trying to also make it mandatory binding targets rather than just goals that we may or may not achieve.
Okay.
So that's one of the other major differences that tomorrow's election is about, moving it down and turning it into binding targets rather than just goals.
Okay. And so what would it actually mean? Like what would need to happen to make 2030? It seems very soon. What would actually need to be done, for example, in buildings?
Yes, of course. It's some very ambitious targets. We actually have to get our act together and stop, being the butt of all jokes as Berlin, which is great, poor and sexy and can't build an airport and everything else. But we believe that we can do better. A lot of us are actually from Berlin, and we have a lot of faith in the city and that it can be a great and livable and international and open-minded place. Some of the big hurdles are, of course, the building sector, the transport sector, and heat and warm water that need to be addressed.
So would we have to put heat pumps in all the buildings?
There's different measures. There's no all the the rules in the law are mostly applied to public buildings, which has been a big misunderstanding, I think, that everyone's like, oh, my private, I'm going to have to move out of my house and I can't afford rent because this is happening. That's not correct. Big public buildings need to be renovated, and there's different mixes, things that can be done, from insulating. If you start with the oldest ones, there's ways to achieve 80% of the target with 20% of the work. It doesn't mean that immediately everything has to be renovated, but they have to move in that direction. The climate always has to be the main goal of any policy.
Okay. So even Bettina Jarasch of the Green Party, she said that she's supporting the referendum tomorrow, but she said that it might be technically possible to hit this target, but it's politically unrealistic. How do you feel about that?
Well, she also said yesterday that the costs of not doing anything are way out beyond the costs of doing something. So that's why the election tomorrow is important, to make these targets legally binding and to tell the government, no, this is what Berlin wants. Do it. There's been missions we've seen in the last couple of years with COVID. At the beginning, everyone was like, the world's going to end, we don't know what to do. And then within a very short period of time, we had vaccinations. And another good example is when the Americans decided to go to the moon. It was like, the moon's up there, we're never going to get there. It's impossible, we can't do it. And 7 years later, they had someone walking on the moon. So we try to not focus on the impossible. And I mean, Berlin's very good, and I'm from Berlin, at finding all the reasons why something can't be done. And you can sit here all day and come up with reasons why you can't do it, why it's not possible, why we shouldn't do it, why it's hard, why it's expensive. But you can also sit here all day and talk about all the reasons why it could happen and why it would be great if it did happen and what we can do for it. And you'll feel very different at the end of the day, depending on how you phrase the question. And we've also seen this in the media coverage so far. Some are very focused on all the things you can't do and why it can't be done, and others ask the questions, well, what can we do? And what do we need to do to achieve this target? Yeah.
And also, what would happen if we don't do it? Because that'll probably be even worse.
Exactly. We can't really afford to. I mean, Berlin, with Klimaneustart, we declared a climate emergency in 2019, not us, the Senate, the Berlin Senate. So they acknowledge the fact that it's a problem. We've seen that in the past summers. We're practically in the desert. The groundwater is dropping, trees are dying, it's getting hotter, and it's the more you cover up surfaces, the more it's turning into a heat sink, and it's just getting hotter and dirtier with more traffic and more people. And
surely we could just give it a go. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? We just have a better world.
God, then wouldn't we all be sickened?
The worst that can happen is you miss the target. You go for 2030, and then we start getting there, and we start achieving goals, and things get better. And we don't have to get everything done by 2030. We have to start moving in the right direction, and everything has to, first and foremost, every new construction, everything we do has to have that climate neutrality calculation on the forefront. And
in the meantime, we are probably going to have a new mayor very soon. And it's probably going to be...
No, if I just ignore it, it will go away. It just will. Nope. Say his name. Go on, say it.
Kai Wegner of the CDU. He's probably going to start a coalition with the SPD, a grand coalition, which no one does anymore in Germany. It's like very 2000s.
Because it's fucking lame.
Yeah, it's like really old-fashioned kind of government, sort of a boomer government.
Wall-to-wall boomers.
So it's the CDU-SPD coalition government. It's probably going to take over soon under Mayor Kai Wegner. Now, does that mean that we're all going to die of climate change? Or is...
of shame,
Or is do the CDU have any plans at all to deal with climate change in Berlin?
I suppose that depends a bit on what happens tomorrow.
Okay.
As an initiative, Klimaneustart doesn't take a position on any parties. We don't side with anyone. We don't have an official opinion on anyone. We just assume that they do their duty and abide by the law. And if there's a referendum that's changing a law, it's their duty to follow the citizens' wish and implement it. So whoever is in the government, we'll look forward to working with them and figure out a way to get Berlin to climate neutrality by 2030.
Okay, but now you've had half a Megacan, and you can also express your personal opinion that is not the Klimaneustart official opinion. What do you think is going to happen if Kai Wegner becomes mayor?
Well, there's certainly a lot of things they need to work on. We would have hoped, or I personally would have hoped for a different outcome. The CDU ran a very successful campaign on fear of cars getting taken away from people, which we also get accused of a lot, which is not part of the referendum. No one's taking anyone's car away. No one's taking anyone's apartment away.
Apart from the CDU, who overturned the fucking Mietendeckel, which did mean that people lost their homes because they couldn't afford them.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yes, but sorry, I'm talking again about people who are not rich. So my bad.
I think those are a bit frustrated. Not many showed up for the election. I think if you look at the results, there was a very strong representation in certain districts that are known to have more well-off people and cars.
Yeah, he tried to. The CDU is a car drivers' party, isn't it?
You did refer to it as the political wing of Volkswagen once, which is my favourite Konrad Werner-ism.
Can I ask you other opinions?
You can. I just wanted to add, while we were talking about cars and stuff, the funny thing is, different cities in Europe have shown that initially everyone's against cars, and once you implement a more livable city, a more greener city that makes it easier to get around by bike, by public transit, people are actually much happier. As examples in Amsterdam, Copenhagen, Utrecht show, they're all very livable cities. They rank really high. The citizens are very happy. But most of those cities, people were not in favor of making the city more friendly for pedestrians and bicycles.
Sometimes we just don't know what is best for us. I also think that political parties run very cynical campaigns, and the CDU is also responsible for saying things like people want to take your cars away, when actually what people want to do is make the city greener and more livable for your grandchildren, which is something that people will agree with.
Yeah.
I don't think there is as much resistance to climate friendly policy on more conservative parts than is presented in the media sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. It's often been shown that politics vastly underestimate people's willingness to change and to do climate-friendly initiatives.
Yeah.
One example I mentioned earlier, the Klimabürgerinnenrat, the Climate Citizens Council, that was also one of the projects of Klimaneustart before the referendum now, that got initiated in 2021, and the Climate Citizens Council was a random group of 100 people selected out of over 2,800 that got contacted. Citizens of Berlin all across the spectrum, all across the ages, the jobs, the districts, classes, trying to get a proper representation by the Berlin Senate. These 100 people got selected, and they had to get together and discuss these issues, climate policies, things, everyday life. What do we want the city to be? How can we make Berlin climate friendly? And even the ones that initially were opposed, that when you read the news or you just get these bullets thrown at you, they go, no, never. In the end, everyone came around to it, because in the end, you see, it's ultimately the best for everyone.
Yeah.
You just need to kind of explain it to people and listen and be willing to hear people's concerns and what actually drives their fear, and get that conversation going, which I think would be a great way going forward as well.
No, that was a really good initiative, that citizens' assembly thing. There was 100 people, and they came up with 60
I think it was 45 or 60 proposals for the Berlin Senate.
And then they actually went to the Senate and said, look, these are our proposals for what you should do in this area to reduce climate emissions. And the government had to sort of deal with it. They had to say yes or no. And I think they got a yes on a few of them, didn't they? 2/3 of them or something.
I don't know the percentage per se, but I know there were a few that they took on, a few that were already working on, of course, because they do have the goal of 2045, no matter what happens tomorrow. And a few that they rejected, but all the ones they rejected, they actually gave a good reasoning why at the moment they decided to reject them. So.
And the 100 citizens, how were they chosen?
It was a completely random draw. I think they started with 2,800 that got contacted, and then kind of selected to make sure there's a broad mix across all the different indicators.
So age group and...
So you couldn't apply for it and say, hey, I'm really into talking about climate, pick me. You just got contacted. So there were also people that had no interest whatsoever, had never really thought about climate issues before.
And this was quite successful. So are they going to do that another one of those?
I'm not sure what the plan was. It started in 2021. They just turned in their proposal in 2022. We had an interesting panel discussion last night where Bettina Jarasch actually suggested that, in her opinion, would be a great way going forward to have more citizen engagement. Maybe not just at city level, but also at district level, and get people together in these forums where you actually talk and listen to each other. And figure out what your biggest concern is. So usually it turns out everyone wants to live in a quiet neighborhood. No one wants to have the noise of traffic. No one wants to have the pollution. Everyone wants to have this peaceful green space. But when you ask about it at a citywide level, a lot of people go, oh, no. Just in my street, but in the city, we still want everything. So if you actually get together, there might be some potential to come up with proposals and have a dialogue with the government and move forward towards a common goal.
Yeah, and some of them, the citizens chosen were people who can't vote, I believe. They were non-Germans, weren't they? Like that wasn't all just German people.
I'm not sure,
I think so.
Possible.
Because, our listeners are often not German. And not able to vote, so...
Which is, we've heard that frustration a bit. It's been great. We have a lot of people that can't vote that have still been very engaged in Klimaneustart, that are very, have their heart in the city and believe in its future and have helped out and have had conversations with their neighbors and with their friends and put in a lot of hours. So it's unfortunate they can't officially vote, but like we said, one battle at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
One other question. What is happening today at Brandenburger Tor?
At Brandenburger Tor right now, as we speak, and for anyone that doesn't have any plans right after, we're having a big rally, Großdemo, with a concert. So it's a mix of political rally and music. It started at 3 o'clock. It's going on until about 8 o'clock. So we have a lot of great bands that are supporting the climate. Element of Crime, Beatsteaks. I'm not really on top of all the music program.
It's German pop music. Do you like German
a lot
pop
of Berlin
music?
bands.
Obviously, it's another reason they should give me the vote.
The Orchester des Wandels, and then a few different speakers like Maya Göpel.
I like her.
Luisa Neubauer, Klimaneustart. So we're trying to be loud, raise awareness again for the referendum tomorrow.
Okay, and that is all my questions.
I really, really hope it goes through, first of all, because I think it is important and necessary, and second of all, to watch an SPD, CDU government have to bring it in. I would love that. Sicken them. There we go. That's my 2 cents. Good luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the audience here? Anyone want to make a point? AUA? No?
What's AUA?
Ask us anything. Instead of AMA, like on Reddit.
No.
AMA? Okay, sorry.
I don't understand Reddit.
Okay.
It's not for me.
Okay. There's a thing they do called AMA, is Ask Me Anything.
Okay.
Okay. Doesn't matter. Okay. Doesn't matter. It's not important.
Yes.
So the question was, what will happen if they don't meet the 2030 target?
Well, officially they're bound by law to work towards it. Of course, it's a big battle, and then they could be sued by citizens or the initiative. It's not the intention at the moment, as long as, if we see that they're doing everything to move towards that and we're taking steps to get in the right direction. That's not the goal of this initiative. It's not to go, we're going to put this so then we can sue people. And as they explained last night as well, it's not, Berlin doesn't have to pay a fee to itself then if they don't meet it. So it's more a way to encourage the government to put pressure on the politics to be like, this is what we need to do. Everything you do, you need to consider the climate first, not who paid for your election campaign. But you need to consider the climate in a socially just way. It's also a very important part of the campaign, that we don't want anyone to lose their apartments. And any difference, if rent prices shouldn't rise because if you have insulation, anything would be covered by your lower expenses. But if they do, the Senate has to make up for the difference. So there's not the intention. We're very big on climate justice and making it fair for everyone and socially just. So there's no crazy consequences. It's more a political tool to put the pressure and then see once we get there, it's like, okay, have we put climate as the first goal? Have we tried our hardest? And then we'll see how we go along the way.
It's not like Kai Wegner's going to be put in prison or anything, no.
Not yet, Kai.
But,
Not for this. Just try your
yeah.
best. Have you done your best, Kai? That's all we can ask.
Well, the thing is, it's a Berlin state law, so they're changing their own law. So it would be the city of Berlin going against the city of Berlin. So,
I mean, what's one thing people say? Because like the protesters, what they call the letzte Generation, the last generation protesters who are sticking themselves to the ground.
Yeah.
In front of cars. They are apparently the first ever protest movement that has a decision from the German Constitutional Court in their favour already before they even started. So the German Constitutional Court passed made a verdict last year in which they said the German government is not meeting its climate targets and is not doing enough. The German government is not doing enough.
Well, there you go.
And in fact, the last generation and all these protest movements are just saying, well, what are you going to do then? Like, what's the consequence of breaking the German constitutional court's decision? Right. Well, I think that's it then. Are we finished?
Yeah, I think so.
Have you got anything else to say?
No, not. This has been really fun.
Okay.
It's been, it's not one of the things I ever thought I'd do in my life.
What, sit in a box?
me neither.
No.
Sitting with a serving hatch.
It is. I feel like a dinner lady. That's it.
Yeah.
But like.
You're just serving the news.
Serving the truth.
Instead of serving
or at least my
potatoes.
opinion. Yeah.
Suppose we end with a call to action.
Yes.
For anyone that can vote, please do. For anyone that can't, tell everyone you know. It's important tomorrow. We're using this tool of direct democracy. Not crazy protests. We have this chance with a regular democratic process to put pressure on the government. So let's take that chance and not waste it and get the word out. Every vote counts. It's going to be close. First we were ignored, then kind of laughed at. Now we're in the fighting stage with the very extreme right. So they've acknowledged we exist and started to mobilize against it. So
Okay.
For Volksentscheid. Yes, for tomorrow.
Yes.
Thanks very much,
Thank
Sabine.
you very, very
That
much,
was brilliant
Sabine, for coming on.
Thank you for
and
having
best
us.
of luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
And thank you very much, guys, for coming and for listening and everything. This is delightful when we sat on the banks of the Landwehr Canal, really, really pissed.
Yeah.
And decided
Little did we know we'd be sitting in
5 years ago
in the bright lights of the Selina Hotel gift shop.
In a podcast hatch.
All those years later.
Professional studio, It
is a studio. We're in a studio.
We have an
It's
on-air sign.
great. I think they have DJs and things in here. I think we're trendy, Ben.
Yeah, do you want to put on some tunes?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
All right. Thank you so
Thanks
much,
very much.
everyone. Cheers.
See ya.
Bye. Have a lovely day.